Hello, creative world. Albert Smart here. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Today, I want to talk about things I wish I knew when I first started drawing. Hopefully, these tips will clear up some anxieties and self doubt. So, let's get into them. So, number one, I used to get very frustrated because I would compare myself to other artists, especially early in drawing, because when you want to draw something really, really good, but you're just not nailing it, even if you're looking at references, you're just not making it happen, it could be very frustrating. And you could definitely look at some of your favorite artists' work, and instead of feeling inspired, you could end up feeling very down and disappointed and irritated with yourself. And I just want to remind everyone that that's totally normal. Um, but it's also a little bit of a cognitive distortion because everybody starts sucky. Everybody. Your favorite artists in the world started sucky. Nobody picks up a pencil and is like, the Harry Potter of pencils and papers. Everybody moves forward at their own pace and learns at their own pace. So don't compare yourself to others, especially early on. Everybody's journey is unique in its own right. So instead, embrace your progress and just keep moving forward. Number two is tools. You know, when I first started drawing, I spent money on pencils and papers and paints and everything that I thought I needed to improve. And if I didn't have them, I'd be like, oh, I gotta find time to get to the art store today because I'm gonna need these if I want to get better. And it's just not true. All you need is a simple piece of paper, preferably without lines, unless you're cool with, note paper. But a piece of paper and a pencil and a decent eraser is all you need to get going, because not every project has to be this fantastic piece of art. Sometimes, and most of the time, when it comes to getting better at something, it involves making a lot of mistakes. And making mistakes is an important part of the process. And everything doesn't have to be perfect. So you just take that piece of paper and that pencil and that eraser and find some good references, or go out and draw from life, which is always, always awesome and super helpful. And don't spend all your money on crazy pencils and tools, and don't follow uh, the advice of people who are like, oh, you want to get better at this, you need this. That's not exactly true. If you're focusing on like a finished piece of art that you're going to display at either like your own little space at home or a gallery or such, of course you want really nice supplies. But in the beginning, simple does just fine. So, number three, I just want to reiterate the importance of drawing ugly. Draw ugly and embrace drawing ugly. When I draw, I start loose. I don't, the lighter you sketch and the looser you sketch, the more freedom you give yourself to correct and manipulate your drawing. So, draw soft, loose, and get that arm moving and get your ideas on paper and let them be ugly. And then you slowly refine. And there's going to be times where your refined work still doesn't look like you want it to. That's okay. I really disliked my artwork for a long, long time, but that doesn't mean I ever stopped doing artwork. It was always something that I just continued to love, continued to do, and I still continue to do those things today. So, recognize that as part of growth is just drawing ugly things and, sometimes I draw ugly things on purpose, like monsters and, um, you know, I mean, anything could really look ugly, but, some creatures and stuff are ugly on purpose. Zombies. Big fan of drawing zombies. Guess what? Zombies are ugly, and you'll learn stuff from drawing ugly. There are things I've learned drawing ugly that I use all the time. All the time. Number 4, how consistency always beats short bursts of motivation. You're not going to feel like drawing every single day. You're going to have days where you're just like, maybe you drew a lot yesterday and you were not having it. You made yourself a sandwich. You're sitting there drawing and you sketch a little and you eat a little sandwich, and then you sketch a little and you eat a little sandwich, and you're noticing that you're eating a whole lot more sandwich than you were sketching. And then you get really frustrated, and then you just try to keep going, and at the end of the day, you burnt yourself out and you got a full stomach full of sandwich. The next day, you might not feel that motivated to to draw, but you just got to stay consistent. Consistency always beats, um, you know, just waiting for that motivation to spark and push you to do it. And I'll be honest, a lot of the times, the second you start getting into it, you're like, oh, I'm so glad I started drawing today. It's kind of like going to the gym. I don't know if you've ever been to the gym, but if you have, you always feel better afterwards. You don't want to go. I mean, sometimes you do. But most of the time you wake up and you're like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym. But you always feel better after you do. And that's exactly how drawing is. So be consistent. Even if you're the type of person like me who needs to work on schedules more, block out half hour, 1 hour a day. Be consistent. Fill up those sketchbooks. Nothing feels better than noticing that you're continuously filling up these sketchbooks. And it's a good way to measure your progress too, because you could always look back and be like, oh, look where I was a week ago. And now I'm here and I'm kicking some ass. So consistency, ladies and gentlemen. Another really good tip is when you're not drawing, in the beginning, you constantly are looking at other people's artwork. You're searching for motivation in other people's work, which is always really important. But I want to give you a little bit of a different perspective. There is beauty and art all around us, shapes and colors and compositions. And I want you to start recognizing the magic in observing the world around you, even on your boring days, and really paying attention to what you're seeing and why it looks the way it looks. Because that's the essence of drawing, is trying to get something to be recognizable and look like it's supposed to look. And what better place to study those things than in your everyday life? Simple stuff. Walking your dog. If you're at work and you're staring at the window and you see a really cool composition through the window, or you're on a train and you see the old gentleman across from you who has such a distinct and amazing portrait. These things, you look at them and you look at textures and you look at angles of things, and they all play together in such harmony, and you can learn a lot from observing the world around you from the eyes of an artist. So I very much encourage you doing that as often as possible. I do it maybe too much. I definitely have a little bit of an art addiction. I take my sketchbook everywhere, even on vacation. I'm on vacation and my wife's like, why'd you bring all this art stuff? And it's just because, this is who I am. This is what I do. I like to do it when I'm not on vacation. And I like to do it when I'm on vacation. And I think that's a beautiful thing. And you can't say that about every career path, but I could definitely say that. And it's pretty fantastic. Okay, number 6. Not every piece that you do needs to be a masterpiece. Um, you know, it's important to work towards building your masterpieces. If you're not, I mean, even for tattooing, because obviously tattooing, you want to do really nice work. Um, but drawing, painting, watercolors, color pencil, you know, it's cool to have a concept in your head and start putting it together to work towards that final masterpiece product. But recognize that, those masterpieces, they are something that you build up to. Most artists don't wake up and just go, today's the day, the masterpiece is happening. Sometimes artists don't even recognize that they're working on a masterpiece until months or even sometimes years down the road. So you have to be patient and just, that's just like I said in these last few steps, be patient, be consistent, draw ugly. Don't worry too much about what you're using at first. Just get lines on the paper and keep building your skill toolbox. You will not regret it. So, you know, just it's kind of like drawing ugly, but it's a little bit different of a perspective. You don't have to just get rid of the anxiety of every drawing you do becoming this awe-inspiring piece of art. It just doesn't have to. And it's not going to help you if that is the way you think. You know, draw just to draw. Draw because you love it. Draw because when you're not drawing, you wish you were drawing. That's why you draw. And the more you do that, the skills will compound and you'll get better and better. And it feels really good to watch that progress. So, throw that pencil on the paper, just draw. Don't worry about it being some sort of awe-inspiring piece of art. Um, and number 7 here, I learned to love redoing the same subject matter over time. This is a little bit of a branch off of consistency, but I'm talking about being consistent with subject matter. Flowers, there's hundreds of them. There's thousands of them. There's thousands of animals. There's thousands of things you can draw. And the more you draw those things, the better you're going to get. I know, for one, I have a little bit of a scatterbrain. There's lots of days where I want to draw something. The next day, I want to draw something completely different, and I'm jumping and I'm bouncing around from subject matter to subject matter, which is fun and great. But, when you go back to that same subject matter weeks later and you realize that you're drawing it the same way you drew it before, it's usually because you didn't put enough time into learning that subject matter and really kind of reverse engineering why it looks the way it looks and how to achieve that look quicker. That comes with repetition. That's not something that just appears because you drew it a couple times. The first couple human skulls that you draw are going to look kind of wonky. But the 20th and the 30th and the 100th, and, I've been drawing a long time. I've probably drawn thousands and thousands of skulls. My skulls today are vastly different than the ones I used to draw. And it's just because I drew them a lot, different angles, different ways of thinking about them, different lighting, which affects the shading, of course. So, redo the same subject over and over so that you could build that mental library for yourself. It really is like an image library in your head that us artistic folk kind of build off of. And the more you draw it, the more you recognize patterns in compositions and in forms. I talk about that a little bit on a video I did not too long ago called How to Draw Any Flower. I talk about finding patterns and such in forms. And you only do that by drawing the same thing over and over again. Uh, just like baking a cake, you only get better at that cake if you bake it over and over again. You want to bake all the cakes. It's good to learn how to bake many different types of cake. But in order to get good at one cake, you got to do it more than once. So embrace repetition. Number 8 here, last but not least, my younger self was very anxious to just be there. And I even do it today. I even noticed that today. Today I am where I wanted to be 10 years ago. I tattoo for a living. I have great clients. I have a tattoo studio full of really talented, beautiful people. And I still have days where I wake up and I wonder to myself, you know, what's next? How do I push myself to be better? What can make life even more worth well, not worth living, but more worth striving for. And I always try to reel it back in and recognize that the journey is everything. You know, the masterpiece is beautiful to look at, but if you don't, the real fun is making the masterpiece, not looking at it. Uh, Becoming a really great artist or tattooer, you know, you want to pick up that pencil and draw awesome shit, and you want people to look at it and be like, dude, that guy's work is incredible. But a lot of the luster in that disappears if you don't have that feeling of, yeah, it looks that way because I put a lot of work into it. I put a lot of time into my sketchbooks while other people were out partying and spending money and making fly by the seat of their pants decisions. I stayed inside and I worked on being creative and I worked on my skills. And eventually, when you look back, you realize like the journey is the fun part. Like, this is great. I love where I'm at. I love having the opportunity to help people and touch people with my art, but getting here was a whole lot of fun. Even on days where I was stressed out and such, it was still fun. And when I look back at my life, I want to have that. I want to have the memories of not being great at something and working my way to being the best I possibly can be. It's easy as a young artist to get very frustrated and give up. I see it a lot. People give up all kinds of things. People give up wanting to be, I mean, just being a tattoo artist. I speak with many, many people and I hear about people's stories, people's careers, people's hobbies, all sorts of stuff. And a lot of the stories I hear are people that wanted to do something or had the dream of being somewhere and they just never got there. And you have to take a moment and recognize that usually they're not there because at some point on the journey, they made a decision not to strive for it anymore. It was either too much emotionally, or maybe they were letting the people around them get in their head and influence them to not continue doing something that they were passionate about. And time continues to go. Every day is an opportunity to build the life you want. But it's also just as easy to say, I'll do it a different day, or this isn't going to work for me. And why not? Who says that you 10 years from now can't be working the craft that you want to work, or can't be experiencing the things that in your heart you really want to experience. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. As a young artist, it's very easy to feel discouraged. And I want you to know that everybody goes through that. Social media and YouTube and everything has a way of glorifying everything and making everything seem so easy, but we all struggle. We all struggle with things, and we all want things to be great, and we all want to be successful, but we have to work on being diligent and consistent and keep driving that passion to get where you ultimately want to be. And it's just not an overnight thing. So, like earlier in your drawing and early in your creative process, try to be patient. Try to embrace the suck. I heard that somewhere. I don't remember where, but embrace the suck. Whoever wrote that, it's delightful. Pull out that motivation sword in the morning and you slay those negative dragons. Just keep going and enjoy it, because what else is there? You're either striving for something better or you're accepting what is. And I could tell you right now, the older you get, I'm specifically speaking to the younger artists that follow my channel, the older you get, the more you recognize how important it is to just be patient and be consistent and know that at the end of the day, that's all that matters. All that matters is you showing up and doing your best to not only continue to help yourself to grow, but I think a big part of that is also paying attention to the people around you and continue to spread good energy and help others with their passions as well. And all of that kind of plays together in this circle of creativity and love. And I think, as hippy dippity as that sounds, it really is true. From the beginning all the way to the end of your journey, do good things, take care of yourself, continue to push yourself, and continue to push the motivated people around you. And all of that will continue to serve you as you grow. That's all I really have for you today. I really appreciate you listening. I hope these talks are motivating and helpful. Please leave any questions you'd like in the comments, or if you think I could be doing something better, I would love to hear it. I am a growing channel, and I do love what I do, and I love helping young, inspiring artists, or maybe not young. Maybe you're just an aspiring artist. I got you back. So check out my next videos if you got the time. I appreciate it, and don't forget to follow, because if you don't, you might never see me again. You have a great rest of your day, and thanks for hanging out.